And so with respect to that, sorry for the interruption, because there's no consistent way of doing that, then if they're working with, 20, 25 different sponsors who all have governance forums and presentations, then the CRO has to be able to get that data, the operational data, so kind of what's the status of all these studies, what's going on from them, and be able to merge that together with what's expected at the governance level in terms of that oversight. So it's not painless. It takes a lot of time to do that. It's always a question of what data sources are going to be used to pull that data together so that it can be summarized or look at and determine kind of what needs to happen in terms of that overarching relationship. So, so the CROs also have pain points associated with this. I think it's just something that has not been addressed in kind of a consistent manner.
Good. Well, let's maybe call Karen in to do a poll to see what our audience thinks the pain points might be in terms of their current state of managing vendor category management.
Sure,
Okay.
here you go. Here's your first poll.
What are we supposed to do? Just
well,
select all that apply.
Yep, so it's right now it's collecting the response organizers and panelists. please don't vote, but everybody else can be voting, and we're getting the responses are coming in. And I'm just watching. We have just almost 50%. Come on, you guys, you can check all that apply, and you can we'll get that going. I'll just give it another few seconds to see if we can get others to join. Keep in mind, you don't have to pick just one if you're having trouble trying to do it. Okay, so we're going to close this poll, and then I'm going to share the results. Here you go.
Yeah.
All right, so was that what you guys were expecting? I'll take it from here.
Yeah, I think this is quite interesting, don't you, Anka? I mean, it speaks to the complexity and all of that data that's coming in and keeping track of what's at the source and what you've agreed to use as source.
I'm also surprised that managing vendor reported metrics, it's so high. But the other 2 points, understanding who you are working with, what the vendor status is, managing governance, that's pretty consistent to the qualitative interviews that you have conducted, Sandy.
Yes, it is. It's very, very aligned with that. Definitely around all of the processes, and then specifically for the vendors, what is it they're actually qualified to do? And if there's been a change in scope, or you want to do a change in scope, has that already gotten reviewed, and are they approved within your quality systems to do that work? Okay, so I think we're about ready to switch gears here. So we're going to check in and with Anka now, because we're all here today to talk about this brand new product you have. It's a new solution in the clinical Maestro family, and it's called Vision. And you're talking about it as the industry's first vendor excellent management solution. So can you tell us what it is and why you consider this a first?
Yes, I'm actually going to pick on 2 words, or maybe on 3 words, on the word first, on the word excellent, and on the word vision. So the name of the product perhaps speaks to the inspiration behind it. Since I was pretty heavily involved in building vendor management myself within a sponsor organization, I have envisioned a better way of doing things than having to log in multiple systems, than having to keep a central tracker in Excel. The heavy lifting around even the most basic elements of vendor management, and I would say something that may seem funny, but it's the simple tracking of capabilities. Even you go to a beautiful event such as Scope, and you come back with a load of business cards, and you want to be remembering some of the interesting discussions that you had, so you can go back to a specific vendor later on. So looking from a procurement perspective and answering question, what are the capabilities of a service provider? And capabilities can be sliced by the service, by the phase centricity, by the therapeutic area, by the department may be applicable, may be suitable for, to knowing questions such as, are they a diverse vendor or not? Are they, is there any statement of work? Are they active? And a vendor may be inactive. That means it had a statement of work, or maybe it went on pause, or it could have been active on, a company that we merged with, and I didn't even know that. So all of the elements around even the most basic element of category management could be simpler. So the vision behind vision has been simplicity. And our life is complex enough. We are working on highly complex protocols, highly complex clinical trials. We live a highly stressful life. I can say that as an entrepreneur, it's quite intense. And I think bringing simplicity and making simplicity as an objective in creating a solution is paramount. And I think Andre here, who has been very quiet, but not for long, is going to agree with me. So we put at the center of vision simplicity around vendor category management and vendor oversight. Now, category management and oversight are quite big buckets. So we started with the category management, more of the procurement perspective, because you can't quite oversee well unless you have a solid vendor database, unless you have a good understanding of your portfolio, unless you can easily go from understanding your vendor status, relate that to their bidding volume, relate that to their contracting work, and ultimately relate that to performance. We call vision an industry first because we haven't found a system like that. And Sandy, when you were doing the research, you did it independent of us. You've asked every single company, what are you using? And we know that such a beautiful system as we envision it doesn't quite exist. So we're taking a humble attempt to build, and we know it's going to take multiple building blocks to build what the industry is needing and addressing the pain points that we have uncovered. And we didn't use the word performance management, we used the word excellence, and that was intentional as well, because we don't want just another tracking system of a service provider performance. We want to have a performance management system that encourages excellence. And that goes beyond tracking. It's making both the life of the service provider and the whole ecosystem. We're not talking just a CRO, entire ecosystem of service providers, bringing that transparency, that visibility that it's needed in both category management and performance management, being able to track performance both quantitatively, let's say through KPIs, but qualitatively as well by measuring the relationship and more of the softer elements of a relationship. And the ultimate goal is to reduce the risk at the service provider portfolio level. All of this is bringing together the excellence. So we call the vision because it is a visionary product. We are certain it's an industry first, and it will take a whole journey for us to build all the building blocks that are required. But and it's about excellence versus just performance management, as you will get to see some sneak peeks today.
Thank you, Anka. So I want to turn to Andre. Since we've got him here, I'd like to take advantage of that and ask him more about how did you actually create this product? How was it truly born?
Sure. So we took an approach which we usually take when working on products at Strategicon. and that is placing the customer first and listening to their feedback. So actually, Vision was born based on a component that we haven't sourced, the application for bidding and sourcing, in which you're basically having a database of your vendors or inviting them in the system to submit proposals for bidding. And we saw this used more and more skewed towards category management beyond its original intention. So that's when we started the research phase around the needs in the vendor management area, where we talked, as Anka mentioned, with both small and big pharma companies to understand the pain points and the needs in these different category segments as we went through them earlier. So this was the research backdrop, and what followed is a iterative process that we use the product team and strategic on, where we evolved towards a solution quickly iterating through multiple sketch prototypes, which we ran with customers and SMEs in the field. And after each iteration, basically we got some feedback, embedded that in, came up with a new iteration, and so on. And so we use this approach. It's not specific to Vision, it's in general, and how we approach new things in our products, be it new or existing, in which we try to get quick feedback around what to build without necessarily involving a lot of development effort, until we know for sure that we're solving the right problem with the right solution. And so when we had an idea of what to do and in what area, we looked at one of the more important items, which was also feasible to do in the time frame we set upon us. And as Anka said, category management is the building block for the entire application. So we started with that, leveraging also the infrastructure we had for Maestro. This will be a journey, as Anka also mentioned. It's the first version, but for sure, when we'll talk about the roadmap going on, this will also be an iterative process on this side as well. So I will leave it at that for the story.
Thank you, Andre. So Anka, what do you see as the benefits then of having a system like this in place?
Well, whenever I think about a solution, and I'm going to use the word solution versus system, because solution means software and service. I think about building a system and a solution that has a high return on investment. And it's not just building something because it's needed short term, it's because you are trying to create sustainable value. And this is absolutely universal. We look at cost, quality, and time. If you look at cost, we want to reduce the number of audit findings related to category management. We've been talking to some leading consulting companies in life sciences that have been telling us that the number of findings related to poor oversight or even challenges at the category level are at all-time high, and that is worrisome. So this has a quality and a cost component. We are looking at converting time into a cost-saving element. If you can use your existing infrastructure, your team to achieve more, and if you can get to your answers faster, that enables a smarter decision making, that you are winning, of course, both on the cost, on the quality through risk minimization, and on the time by being able to get the answers faster. If you are thinking again from the perspective of having a simpler ecosystem, that makes the life of IT easier, that makes the life of different stakeholders easier. Being able to identify a single source of truth for what you are looking for without necessarily replacing anything. So we do not intend to come up with, let's say, a new qualification system that would replace the existing qualification system, which may be an excellent system with happy stakeholders. We are looking at extracting data from that system that is relevant for vendor management. We are also looking to build whenever there isn't anything in place. So in this domino game, we are looking at simplicity, we are looking at cost savings, we are looking at intelligent decision making, and all of these results in higher quality and results in better informed decisions. So, and ultimately lower risk of at the portfolio level for the entire portfolio of service providers.
Yeah, very good. I mean, it sounds great, and I think it's exciting, but let's check in with our audience now. We have another poll for you to do. We really want to find out what you are looking for in terms of a new solution or system.
All right, there you go. We're live with the, again, select all that would apply. Let us know what you think. I know it takes a little bit to go through all of these. But we'll give you a minute or so to pick. Numbers are changing rapidly, guys. Just I know you can't see it, but I can see it. So it's pretty interesting watching all the votes come in. So all right, we'll just give it another couple of seconds. Any last votes? Going once, going twice. All right. So let me share the results with you guys.
Easy reporting. So the word simplicity does resonate with everybody. We look at simplicity as a form of making things easier. Central repository. Ability to track KPIs, very consistent with 89% of the users reporting this being a pain point, and 100% of the responder wanting to resolve that pain point. Very interesting. Sandy, any comments? Any surprises here?
I don't think I'm not surprised, but it is interesting to see 100% on the ability to track the vendor and service KPIs. I think that's indicative of the fact that there just isn't anything where you can go in and see both historic KPIs and historic metrics, as well as your ongoing current operational metrics and KPIs. So I think this really highlights the importance of that for people looking for a solution.
Okay, well, that's excellent. Well, let's try to see how we are attempting to solve some of the problems. Let's focus on the category management first. So that would answer some of the desired points around having a central database, having being able to answer questions on the vendor status. And Andre can give us a very high-level overview of the solution that we are releasing now in September for category management. And then let's talk about the roadmap and what we have in store for KPI tracking. Sure. Andre, this is all yours.
So, yep, I'll take the screen for a quick demonstration. Let me know if you can see it.
We can.
Okay, so as we mentioned in the first release, we'll focus on category management and answering questions such as what are the vendors in my portfolio, what category are they in, what's their status, their preference, are they qualified, and if so, for what services, what therapeutic area are they specialized in, and so on. And so on the first page, you'd see an overview of the status, and you'd have the listing of vendors where you can easily search. So I can ask a question, for example, what are the CROs in my portfolio which are qualified for oncology, let's say, and we see that we drill down to an example here. And of course, I have more filters here if I need to access them. For example, what studies are they working them, or are they active or prospective? I know these were some of the questions from the initial polls. So let's load this vendor to give an example here. And apologies, my internet has not been the best friend of me today. While this loads, I'll mention that all of the information in here is also accessible in a controlled way to the vendor, and they also have an interface where they can input this if you allow them to, of course, control via a role-based access. So
in fact,
we start on
they're quite instrumental in the design. Sorry to interrupt you, Andrei.
Yeah.
Because we had this concept already in our sourcing application, in which we wanted to shift the accountability and responsibility of updating vendor records to the vendor itself. So as you can see here, information related to the general profile, to the different categories and services, to qualification, to even M&A history, and we have different other elements such as diversity. And we wanted the service provider to be responsible for keeping these records clean and accurate. So you don't have to, as a sponsor, first of all, have a lot of legacy information to move from other systems, but also you don't want to be worried because, you know, Sandy is no longer at Cineas. You know, somebody has updated her profile, and that is keeps the information current at any point in time. So hopefully this is by design, and this alleviates a lot of the challenges around keeping a vendor database clean and accurate. Go ahead, Andrei.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification, Anka. So getting back here, we can store general information about the vendors, such as the address and contact information. Again, as Anka mentioned, this can be inputted directly by the vendor. One recurring item that you'll see in the application is the ability to have threaded communication on most elements. And this can be also internal communication within your own vendor management team or organization, and also external communication, so with the third party, meaning the vendor. So for example, I could comment on their profile page here for the internal team and mention that I met them at Scope conference. And you'll see this engine reused in a lot of places going forward. Moving on, we can track their specialization. So what type of vendor they are, what therapeutic area and phase focus do they have, and what categories are they working in. And here, again, touching base on the file management and communication, we can store relevant documents related to the qualification of these categories, which can be accessed and downloaded easily through the application. Next, the agreements, we can store service agreements referring to MSAs, SSAs, NDAs in the system. An advantage of doing this is that we also have configurable expiration alerts. So for example, this NDA is expiring in 10 days and we get an alert for the respective item, which is also shown in the alerts tab. And if we move to the work orders, again, this is an example of how we built this modularly, in the sense that if you do proposals through source, this would be pulled in automatically from there, but it can also be separate. One important note, which I would like to highlight here, is that you can track both subcontractors for work orders. So we see journal information about this work order. We see what services it has contracted and what's the study, whether it's active or inactive. And we also see that we have a subcontractor for home health, and we see the amount subcontracted as well. So this is an important pain point in category management that we saw, being able to establish relationships like this between vendors and the sponsor, and being able to easily see this presented as a summary. We of course can track the selection members, both internal and external, and any relevant attachments or communication.
And if there is already a contract management system in place, the intent is by no means to replace it. We would just pull the data relevant to the contract in Vision. Vision is designed to integrate with any other system. The goal is for the strategic vendor manager not to log into different systems and to find exactly the relevant information. So this could be, for smaller pharma, could be used as a contract management system. But if the contract management system exists, this is only going to pull the important data, which is around the SOW. And we've seen the detail around the subcontractor level. It's oftentimes missing, even in sophisticated contract management systems. So we want to make sure that we bring that visibility, even if there is a robust system in place.
Yep. So moving on, for audits and qualifications, we can track various types of audits, IT journal audits, their finding and what services they are for. Similarly to qualifications, be it vendor QA, journal QA, the services and category impacted, as well as when was the qualification done, what's it, what the team lead is, and any relevant communication and documentation. We'll mention in the roadmap discussion, so I'll be brief here, that for future releases, we also plan to have a surveying module, so you can do the qualification directly in the system in Vision.
Or we can connect with the qualification system, or a quality system should it be in place. So again, the point is to bring the data in a simpler way for category management purposes. If it's external, or we can also be the data originator.
Yeah, it really depends on the setup of each sponsor, and this is sort of designed to accommodate multiple setup types, essentially. So Anka mentioned in one of the previous comments around tracking the complexity of M&As and different types of acquisitions, if they are applicable. So we can also track that in Vision and see the type of acquisition, the year, and any relevant documents related to it. And this is, of course, also reflected in the work order aggregation that I showed earlier. Next up, for governance, we can track the preference status and the tier of the vendor, the governance team members from both the sponsor and the vendor side, and what is their role in governance. And for governance related documents like oversight plans or performance assessments, they can all be centralized in a central place, easily accessible in Vision, where you can, for example, get to the respective oversight plan, in this case, easily from the system for this vendor. And this same applies for the governance meetings, where we essentially can track both past and future governance meetings of different types, for example, QBRs, with the participants and any meeting minutes or commentary around them. I showed the contacts and the team members from the vendor side. These are stored in the contacts tab here. This is also where you can invite the vendor contacts to the system and assign a role on what they can access. But of course, you can store contacts here without inviting them in the system, just for tracking purposes. We mentioned rate cards in one of the polls. You can track both current and historical billable cards here and compare them to see the delta and the variance in rates across countries. And finally, we had a lot of communication examples and comments and files for this specific vendor, which can be accessed individually if you search for the information. But we also have an aggregated view of this. So in the All Comments tab, we see all of the communication taking place on this vendor profile. This is a simple example, but we can have threaded communication supported here. And the idea is to easily search for a specific comment posted by a specific user to find a communication event. And the same applies to files, where we easily aggregate all of the files related to this vendor that we can search. So I can essentially search for I was talking earlier about the oversight plans. I can easily find it from here without having to go through the governance sections. So I think this would do for a quick overview of the category management functions in Vision. So I'm handing back to you, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you. So that's pretty interesting to see. And I can think about hours that I could have saved in terms of governance meetings and just being able to find information and find it quickly. I know many people have to deal with those things in trackers and in SharePoint sites and those sorts of things. So being able to give that access control, makes a lot of sense. So Andre, can you tell me when the product is actually going to be released and kind of what is in store on your roadmap?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically it's available right now, the version that I showed. It was a live demo environment, and it's essentially released and available. And for the future items, we basically are looking towards serving and qualification capabilities and performance and metrics are as two next two core pillars that we will launch on, as well as improving and getting feedback on the existing category management capabilities.
In principle, we have 2 releases planned. The first one, 2 more, so we are looking at version 2.0 right now. I don't know how the team is gonna label this one, 3.0 or 2.1, I'm not sure, but it's coming in Q1. It's going to be primarily around qualification, workflows, and setting up, I believe, the metrics library. Or that is coming in the Q2 release. I'm not sure, Andre. Maybe you can speak a little bit about the 2.1
yeah, metrics
and 3.0.
Metrics will be the focus of the Q2 release, Q2 2023, where we will set up the metrics library. And if we have time, maybe you can also show that today. So it's all going to be around performance tracking, metrics reports from vendors, comparing them across your vendor portfolio and so on. And for the Q1 2023 release, we'll focus on serving and qualification in the system, as well as tracking vendor open issues in an issue log
Well, let's take a look, Andre. I think I think it would be good to see how a metrics dashboard would look like.
Yep. So let me switch then back to my screen. Again, I was mentioning earlier about our development product approach and around prototypes. This is a prototype for a future for the Q2 2023 release of Vision that we are iterating on. And I will focus on the performance section, which is going to be new. And the idea here is twofold. One is offering a base set of metrics for sponsors to choose from, and then allowing sponsors to manage their own definition for the metrics. This is a pain point that we saw, in which even for sponsors who do track performance metrics, the way that the vendor reports them is not always consistent. So you're not comparing apples to apples. So in this way, we plan to offer the sponsor the capability of managing that, and the vendor would just report the raw data points with the metric computed by the system. And of course, once we have this type of extendable library, you can assign that to specific vendors, because some metrics will be specific to different vendor types. And finally, once reporting goes on and things start to flow through the system, we can have an overview on the metrics of at the portfolio level, which of course can be filtered for specific metrics category, a specific vendor, or a specific study. And of course, once you have this type of dashboard in the system, you can compare metrics across vendors. So I can, for example, select a few metrics to compare across several vendors, and these can be compared, of course, at a current reporting level, or I can also see the distribution over time. And essentially, we mentioned how vendors submit this information. This would be in the system directly through the reports section here, where we can have a different customizable frequency for which the vendor reports this. But essentially, what the vendor reports on, if I'm going to open a report here, would be the raw data. And you can, of course, see this over time as it gets extended in reporting. And the KPI would be defined and managed in the system. So I can see exactly how on-time accruals in this case is defined for the specific metric. So I think that would be a quick overview of the performance framework that we are using for the roadmap.
Thank you, Andre. I want to thank all of our panelists, but I'm going to interrupt you now, as we promised the audience we would get to some of their questions. So this is what we're going to do right now in the few minutes we have remaining. So it looks like the first one might be one that would go to you, Anka. It says, how does Vision address the functional silos found in so many sponsor and CRO organizations?
Again, Vision was built for simplicity and connectivity. So the demo that we did at the current version looks very simple. You know, a couple of tabs, a clean information, very few buttons. But if you think about Vision as being a connector of multiple systems that would give you that ease and that simplicity, then basically we are breaking the silos. If you were to individually log in a qualification system to look for vendor X, and then separately in a QMS system, and separately go through some trackers and look at some work orders and look in a contract management system, you are basically, spending a couple of days logging in and taking notes and learning different systems. Well, you saw how simple Vision looked. And again, I keep saying the word simple because this is by design. But behind the scene, it's this connectivity that is a silo breaker. We also, through role-based access, we want Vision to be used by everyone. Whether your role is in procurement and you may be an actor in the system doing category management, but if you are a project manager, if you are a department head, if you are in clinical operations, you should be able to log in the system and answer the question, what other service providers we have for biometrics, without calling somebody in procurement. In fact, I remember quite well that a big portion of my team's time in outsourcing was answering these type of questions. Who do we use for that? Who is this team working with? Trying to even find synergies between related studies that may have the same or different strategic partners. So again, that can benefit a large organization, that can benefit everyone in the organization logs in, including the service providers. There should be no secret of a service provider logging in and seeing their entire history in a simple view. So hopefully this breaks silos and keeps things very minimalistic. And again, this is done on purpose, even if behind the scene there is actually a lot of complexity.
Excellent, thank you. Another question, I'm just going to toss this out to whomever, you guys can fight amongst yourselves who answers it. It said, well, it was very clear what the benefits are to a large biopharma organization. Can you expound again and give us a little more information on how you handle vendor qualification and oversight activities for small to mid-sized biopharma?
I can.
Andre, you want to take that one?
Take this. Yeah, and then I can open it up for Anka or Sandy if they have additional comments. But I think the main focus here, or the main takeaway, is that we are supporting small pharma set up their processes in this area. For example, if we look at the performance metrics demo that I gave earlier, we will be offering a predefined library of metrics from which they can choose to accommodate the need that they possibly do not have metrics in the first hand. They do not have time to develop them, so they just are not tracking them. And this is something which we also do in Source by offering the Maestro grid as a structure and default questions for bidding. So I think this would be the main important point in this case. And there's another angle to this, because during some of our discussions with smaller pharma, we usually saw that they avoid setting up a process around vendor management because of low volume. So essentially they work with a few vendors, so they don't necessarily see this as a problem. But I think that this can quickly turn into an issue once they grow and scale. So we'd recommend setting this up at an earlier stage, since it's also easier. So there's less data to ingest, setting up the process is easier, and then you can scale up easily going forward. So that's my take on this.
And very quickly, from a small company perspective, you don't need to have multiple systems. So the data connectivity is there, yeah, but most likely there is no contract management system in place. There is no qualification system in place. So for those situations, Vision can be all of these elements. At some point, should you decide to divorce and use a different system, or you have different preference, or you become part of a larger organization, then we can leverage the data connectivity. Either way, the answers will always be at your fingertips, so regardless of the scale.
All right, well, we're coming down to the wire. I'm going to throw in one last question. You guys got about 30 seconds to answer it. But how do you get the data into Vision, and can you connect to other systems? Andre, I think that's going to go back to you.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a large part of the setup we've done for Vision, which is not immediately visible in the demo since it's more beneath the scenes and technical. But essentially, we have built it from the ground up as open to API integration. So we offer APIs that you can connect from by default externally, and we can also connect with external system. We can import from Excel and external files, and we can offer support in implementation with ERPs, which are usually customized, like SAP or Ariba. So I think that would be the framework for that.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and thank you to our panel. Any last words? Hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar on October 5th. And if you haven't, please take a look at the handouts that we've attached to this. And if you didn't get a chance to download any of them, or you want any other information, please don't hesitate to contact us. You guys good? All right.
Thank you.
It was fun.
All right. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.